All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Mariaki, my friend, for joining me and sharing your wealth of knowledge with my students. So would you mind just starting by telling them about yourself?
Sure. Keisha, first, thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here with you. This is my 9th year as the librarian teacher at Crone Middle School. And I had careers before this in publishing and bookselling, and even dabbled as a literary agent a bit. But I'll tell you, this career has been my favorite. I'm also a mom to 2 adult daughters with my husband and I. And one of them is an early childhood education major, and the other will be a nurse.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
have to ask you about that, but we'll talk later.
Yeah. So much.
So, Mary, you're obviously a lover of books because you surrounded yourself with them in all facets of those careers. So, why do you believe libraries, school and classroom libraries, are important for children?
I just remember back when I was a child and how walking into my public library, my senses would just come alive. I mean, I can still remember the way it smelled, the way the lights, the fluorescent lights sounded buzzing above, but really the smell of the books as you open them. And if you ask me today, probably Where the Wild Things Are brings to mind most vividly that whole experience of entering my public library. And I just read the shelves. I mean, I was one of those readers that as I matured, I would just go through, I'd find The Bees, Judy Blume, and then I'd just read every Judy Blume book in a row. So I think for me, what's really important about school and classroom libraries is that books and libraries provide that space for that spark of curiosity and just wanting to learn about, like, think of all the things Judy Blume wrote about, think about our changing bodies.
Yes.
And what it was like.
I must increase my bust is what I remember most.
Exactly. So that's why they're so important. Books are a window into the world, and for those voyeurs among us, and I know Keisha, you and I share that, it gives us a chance to live those lives and spark that curiosity about others' lives.
That's awesome. I agree with that. How do you think, as a librarian, how do you see the library supporting literacy instruction?
So I guess an analogy came to mind when I was thinking about this question, and it had to do with books being kind of like, knowledge being water. Okay, so we're all like, sometimes we're knee deep, sometimes we're in over our heads. And when we're learning, and whether it's learning to read or learning about a topic once we've learned to read, books, for me, represents sort of like a waterfall of ideas. I know, I'm going way out here.
I love it. Keep going.
Yeah. But libraries are like that big swimming pool that if you're studying, I don't know, let's say metamorphosis of a butterfly, you know that you can, as a teacher or as a student, come to the library and go to that Dewey section and find all kinds of books on that topic as that waterfall of ideas, but then to help you navigate through the shallow end and make your way into the deeper end, book by book. I remember, Keisha, do you remember when we hosted the authors and it was The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind?
Yes.
And in that book, he told about how he went to a community library first to learn how to build his windmill that then saved his village.
It was the only place he could go.
Yeah. So, and with instruction and literacy instruction, since I'm at the middle school level, I guess from my point of view, it's the ability to offer students the right book at the right time, whether it's, no matter what reading level it is, Lexile that or whatever, which I don't even pay attention to that, right? But like the difficulty
Did you
level.
guys hear that? She says she doesn't pay attention to that. Don't do it.
So that's, where the literacy instruction piece comes in. They can find something that's at their level where they can practice treading water until they can swim into the deep end for them, which
I
is
love
different
that.
for everybody, right?
Absolutely. I just read, it was the United Nations Educational and Scientific Committee. They wrote a statement that said literacy is a human right and that literacy basically saves lives.
Yeah.
And I thought about like that responsibility of literacy, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so those books become the buoys in your water that help you float, to help you
Oh my gosh.
like
The
like
buoys,
so it,
yeah.
yeah, it just
When you're swimming, you just grab onto one
yeah,
and you can rest, catch your breath, learn
exactly.
how to take the next stroke.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Hey, so we've always done this, you guys, so
Yeah.
this is natural for us.
Yeah. Wheelhouse.
Exactly. What is the best way you have seen that helps students engage and really learn about books? So I know you're so creative, Mary.
Oh my gosh. Well, my creative partner, Keisha Rembert, and I, we had some great times with book tastings
Yes.
where we would just cover the library shelves or the library tables with just an assortment of tasty books. And Keisha had this wonderful organizer just to help prompt and help students keep track of all of their thoughts about various books, looking at the cover, reading a few sentences. And book tastings are definitely one way that I've seen very effective. Probably the most effective way I've seen is just one-to-one conversations between students, or between teachers and students, or teachers and teachers. But those one-to-one conversations, that you learn more about each other, whether you've been friends for years or you're just getting to know someone. And then book clubs, the magic of book clubs.
Yes.
Keisha can speak to that way more than I do.
Yes.
But she used to bring her classes to the LMC, and she would do that knowing, oh, Mary read this book. I know I'll send that group down to Mary, or for her to observe, because we were just like little flies on the wall, and we were not the
And the kids took it
facilitators.
over. The kids
Absolutely.
really I think people would be surprised at when you give the reins to students what they can do, and even younger students. So I know some of my students will be working with little ones, but I think a lot of times we underestimate even what young students can bring to literature.
That's right. That's right. The book Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson, when you said give them the reins, I thought of that book, Harbor Me, and those.
Yes.
I think that was set in a middle school. Might have been upper elementary, but how those kids just made connections with each other. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's that interpersonal relationship too that it builds when you have those book clubs. So you just talked about that one. I'll move. What is the role of comfort? So I'll just kind of I'll share a little bit. So Mary kind of if you're into HGTV, you know those shows where you kind of flip this house and you redesign it. Well, Mary redesigned the library, and it was a very student-centered redesign. And so that made me think of this question, Mary. So what is the role of comfort in a reading space for children?
Well, comfort. So to each his own, right? So I think one of the keys is, which I attempted to do, we have a real large open space in the new redesign. At the same time, kind of being attuned to giving the quiet area, the quieter area, a nice representation. And if you can, which I would like to do more of, have some comfy furniture or bean bags, anything, blankets, pillows, in that, especially in that quiet space. that has really helped readers in our LMC. But you know, it's pretty amazing how kids can tune things out. Like I'm trying to tune out my lovely dog right now. How they can tune out, and even down the very center of our very busy, large open space, give them some comfy chairs and they will just melt into that book and be able to focus. So, but what other ideas about comfort are we thinking of? Those are the obvious ones.
Yeah, and then so the less obvious ones are like I also think about the comfort in coming to ask for a book that like you might be wanting to see yourself in a text that that you might not want everybody else to know that you're
Yes,
exploring.
exactly. So we do have a genrefied fiction section, which allows for students to go straight to mystery if that's the books they love. And we had some debate we have just an example of the conversations that go on between our students, teachers, and the library. We have a GSA club, and I go and book talk when we get several nice selection to add to
I'm just
our.
going to tell them what it is. It's the Gay Student Alliance. So yeah.
Yes, and so the Gay Straight Alliance kids, I go book talk them on some really cool books, but then also we kept the feedback loop going when we were like, they thought maybe at first they might like them in a section set apart from the other genres. And I was like, do you think, what if someone wants to find a book, but they don't want it to be obvious? And they're like, oh, you're right. It's okay if they're mixed out throughout. And I go, as long as you have a list that you know that everyone knows where to access the list, right? Yeah. And then we're like, they or we both mutually thought, what about just a little sticker on the spine, like just a visual of, and they chose a little rainbow sticker. So we put the little rainbow sticker on there. So now they're all mingled, all the books with, characters who are gay or transitioning or transgender are mingled into their primary genre, but then they also are on a list, and then they also have little rainbow tags.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add, because I know that you ladies are thinking, well, those are subject areas that are pretty mature for younger students. I would just say that I'm not sure if those are subject areas that are mature. I think that all students need to be exposed to a variety of all books.
Yeah.
So the next question that I have for you, can I talk about makerspaces? So can you talk to us about your makerspace and how that connects to literacy? Because I've seen you do some cool things, even with Nikki's class, where the makerspace becomes a jumping point for writing even.
Absolutely, yes. So we have a makerspace, and it could be origami paper, because we do origami math projects with our math classes, where we print out just the simple Dover pages of origami, and we'll have like maybe 9 different ones, and then we'll put a number 1 to 9, with 9 being the most challenging, right? And then they'll just learn angles and geometry by doing origami. So it could just be paper and things you print offline for origami. It could be maybe someone donated a bunch of Legos, and the Legos are what we use for what Keisha mentioned, the jumping off for the writing. Let's say they want to create a scene or a character from their book they're reading, and then they make that with the Legos, and then they write and describe what the character might be doing in the story, or an extension activity possibly. We have also, what else have we done? We do makerspace things with our science, and a lot of times they just like to build. We have Lincoln logs, we have Kiva planks, those are pretty popular, and mag tiles. Wow. And so, but I mean, we also have cups and straws and tongue depressors, binder clips.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, and the kids will migrate to those tactile buildable things. So for instance, at the end of the Pearl, a class came down and they designed the huts, an
Oh,
example of the
wow.
huts from the Pearl. So, and
That's
they just
awesome.
used like the tongue depressors and the binder clips, I think, to
Yeah.
create those.
That's just such a great kinesthetic activity that sometimes we see as art, but it's not art. It's a reflection of what they saw in the book. And so in that way, they are synthesizing their understanding and showcasing how they envisioned the text, which is a
Mhm.
literacy strategy
Yeah.
overall.
I mean, you could use Legos too for grammar or building sentences and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else advice? So I'm going to ditch my other question. But what other, thinking about new teachers or teachers, because some of the new ladies aren't necessarily new,
Right.
teachers, what advice would you give them when it comes to just having a treasure trove of books?
Listen to your students and, what they're looking for. Let that be your guide for either what you add to the collection when you have a little budget money, or even how you display the collection. Um, we just moved around a lot of different things in our library. I'm creating space for a narrative nonfiction section for middle school.
Yeah.
So we'll highlight that and we'll just keep it in a separate section for as long as we feel like. So listen to what they're interested in and let that be your guide. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with my students.